There we go. We are live. There's always that delay on. You never know if it's going to be 2 seconds or 20 seconds when you hit go live. So we are live. Welcome to Entrepreneurs Roundtable. And we got a great guest on today and a great topic. But first, a little housekeeping. If you are just watching this on YouTube or you're watching it live or wherever you're watching this, listening to this as a podcast, because this in about a week or two will be a podcast on iTunes, go over to Facebook and search Entrepreneurs Roundtable and request to join the group. What, were you going to say something?
No, I had it up the YouTube. There's a delay, so I had the YouTube page open another window. That's why it started to play. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we got an awesome group over there that's growing every day, and it's basically an online mastermind with just a large variety. We've got all the way from like ladies who sell Mary Kay to like CEOs of companies, very, very successful companies, and all in between we got lots of just solopreneurs and people just trying to get started, side hustles, working their jobs. And so everyone is really awesome in that group. We get positive feedback all the time from how it's helping people with their business. So go check it out. And really quick, I want to give a few wins. Something we started doing a couple episodes back is because we love our community so much and because the people are so awesome in there and are constantly inspiring, even Mike and myself, we wanted to start highlighting some people. So we got two wins and MVP. So for our wins are just entrepreneurs in there who posted something in the last week or two about an awesome win that they've had with their business. So first up we have Jason Vance, and he started, I don't know exactly what he's doing, but he's doing something, and his model was, because it's more what he talked about, was a pay what you want, where he offered it like, here you go, and you choose your payment price, and he experiments with it, and he's not had it up that long, less than a month. I want to say 2 weeks, but it's less than a month, and he's hit 2K already with it, with people volunteering to pay for whatever it is that he's a little secretive of, or maybe he just didn't mention because that wasn't the point of the success. So yeah, he hit 2K already, so that was pretty awesome. And then we have Jamie Hart Edgar, where she recently started a photography business, and she just signed up her third client. So now it kind of feels real for her, and she feels like she has a real business now. So she's all excited. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
And we see stuff like that all the time in this group, and we also see people just helping each other with how do I set this up or how do I do this, and that's really awesome. And then really quick, we want to highlight an MVP. So hopefully I can get his name right. Todd Genatasio.
Yeah.
So Mike got that phonetically written out for me before, because I was like, I don't have no clue what's his last name. But,
I sent him a message. I was like, dude, how do we say your last name so we don't?
I was practicing ahead of time, and I'm like, this is not right, and this just makes me look like an idiot who can't read. So that's why I told Mike. But yeah, Todd Genatasio, and he's MVP this week because I've just noticed him in the last week and a half, just really step up his game. He's been helping out a lot. Providing feedback, posting, not just going, oh, go Google that, but he's actually like finding links to the actual thing on Amazon for people. He's been answering questions, he's been chipping in, and he's just been a great help in the last week or so. So we just want to highlight him for being an awesome community member, an MVP this week. So
yeah, man. Yeah. I feel like he's literally just had the group open all day long, because I'll post something or other people post something, he just chimes right in, and he gives like a really full, in-depth reason of why to do something and links, and it's like, wow, it's super helpful.
Yeah, appreciate him. So, cool.
Appreciate you, Todd.
Yep. And hopefully that is part of this is we want to give back and say thank you. People can go check them out, but also we want to motivate the rest of the people in the group to be just as helpful. So hopefully we're like having a hard time, like, oh, there's like 10 people who've been awesome. I don't know what we're gonna do. We'll have to do a highlight reel or something. So, so Mike, really quick, once again, this is one of your invitees. So I'll let you take a minute and do the quick intro, and we'll jump into this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess like a couple years ago was when I was in New Jersey. I was going to the Morris County Chamber of Commerce. It's in northern New Jersey, and it's a lot of local businesses. There's like 700 members or something at the time. So every third Friday there was a meeting where everyone would get together, and you get like 200 people in the room, and they network. And it's still going on. It's a really strong group. And so when Dave, he had an idea, I guess, to infiltrate the group with a salesperson to go, because that was his demographic. Because Dave right now, he is a sales coach. Dave is a business coach. So he helps executives, like CEOs and executives of companies, just get their thoughts together, have accountability, and just have someone to talk to. And they're like, I have no one to talk to, and I'm the top of the company, and it's I just need to either vent or just strategize with. So Dave had a sales guy, recruiter, basically go in and just kind of talk in the group. And I was in a round table. I did my spiel, and his name's Mark, and he came up to me afterwards and he said, I've got this guy I want you to talk to, and he helped basically blow up, Babies R Us, and he was the COO. We were saying CEO, Dave was the COO, Babies R Us, and he think it'd be really good for you to talk to him. And I was like, all right. So Dave came in, super chill dude, just like laid back, was like, yeah, man, I help business and do coaching, and I didn't really understand what business coaching was at the time. And he listened to me for about an hour, just say like, he came in, I had the defense up. Because everyone comes in trying to sell it, you think they're trying to sell you, and he was like, all right, whatever, laid back. He's like, look, man. He's like, he listened to me for an hour, and he goes, look, I got this seminar coming up. It's all day. I'll give it to you for this cost. He cut 75% off the cost, and he goes, just come to it. And I was like, all right, cool. So I went to it, spent all day, and it was talking about business structure, of how do you really structure business. I was in a mastermind group prior to that, and it was awesome in getting out of where I was, out of my apartment, in growing my business. But a lot of people would say, go do this. And you're like, well, how do you do it? They're like, well, I don't know. And it was kind of counterintuitive. So, if you're doing a mastermind group, make sure you're surrounded by people who know exactly how to give you, if they give you advice, make sure they've done it, and they can give you step by step. So with Dave, he showed me structure. We talked about, margins in business, and, how if everything starts if you start losing money, or if it starts getting tight, what's the first thing you go after and start cutting back on? It's like your margins is basically like what you're paying for. So that's where you can quickly start saving money. And he just started learning all this stuff. So that's how I met Dave. And after that, I signed up with him right away. We did an animation for him as well, which is on his website. And so that's how I met Dave. And Dave Schoenbeck. It took me a while. It took me for a couple of weeks. I was saying like Schoenbeck, I think forever.
Everybody does.
But welcome, Dave, to the show. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike. It's good to be here.
Awesome, man.
Why don't you just give us a quick, I know Mike did a pretty awesome intro of you there, but why don't you do a quick little spiel of what, kind of how you like to promote yourself, or what you want to say, or whatever, any tidbits from your past or anything you want to do as a quick introduction before we dive into our questions for you.
Okay. All right. So I'm a coach late in my career. My first 25 years, I worked in the retail business, mostly food store and drug stores, almost all over the country. I think I owned 10 different homes as I chased my career in increasing jobs all over the country. So did that and joined Toys R Us in 1996 and ran the northwest coast of the U.S. For Toys R Us. And then after a year, was approached by the CEO and the chairman of Toys R Us to join the team that actually there was no team. There was a couple of guys playing around with the concept of starting Babies R Us. So we took that idea of a big box juvenile store and developed a couple of test stores, proof of concept, worked on plans for it, and built one store on the West Coast in Tustin, California, and one in Long Island in Westbury. And so opened those two stores, fiddled around with the concept, and eventually started building it out. So we went from really an idea to, in 2007, we sold it to private equity investors that bought Toys R Us, and we were actually going to be a public company, be spun off as an IPO. And in the 11th hour of the negotiations, as Toys went from public company to private company, they threw us into the deal. So instead of being a standalone IPO, we ended up part of the deal where Toys R Us went from public to private. So the good news is that the Babies R Us group was worth $3 billion in the transaction, so it was kind of cool for all of us.
A little bit of money.
A little bit. I get a little bit of that. So enough to make me financially independent. which was a cool thing and a real liberating experience, I might add. I took about 6 months off, 6 or 8 months, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and went through my bucket list in that 6 months, got almost everything done, and it was cold and snowy in New Jersey, and I decided I have to figure out something else to do. So I reflected back on what I really enjoyed about running businesses, and it was really about putting my hands in the wet cement of the next generation of leaders.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
that's really my why when you think about it, as Simon would say, "What's your why?"
Yeah.
And that was mine. So I don't make a lot of money doing what I do, not compared to what I did before, but I get tremendous fulfillment from helping young entrepreneurs figure out how to grow their company. So that's what I've been doing since 2007 and a half.
Wow.
And it's been really good. So I started out thinking that all my clients were going to be these great retail companies because I was a retail expert, and they'll flock to me, and I'll be the retail guru of North America. And as it's turned out, most of the businesses that I coach are not retail at all. I get a few every once in a while, which frankly surprised me. So I coach a lot of tech firms, professional services firms, and it's actually a pretty wide variety of different kinds of people and different businesses.
What's like their like psychographic makeup? And you taught me all about this in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, really that was our struggle together always, because I would come to you and say, all right, I'm going to go after franchises. You're like, all right, good. Here's a list of franchises. Like, I don't want to go after franchises anymore. You're like, it's been a week. So you would send me stuff all the time and say, like, here's the personal makeup. Here, write out like 200 things, like their age, right, where they're looking, all that stuff. So for you, like that's what I love, because you went into business. A lot of entrepreneurs will go into it and they go, I have a cool product, I want to sell it. You knew business as you became an entrepreneur, but at the same time, you went from having this giant team to being by yourself. So you had to keep, which a lot of COOs, C-suite people have done, and I've met them, and they're like, you know, they think, and I'm not saying you are, but they think they're like the top stuff, and then you're like, and they talk to you, or they would talk to me like, well, I know what I'm doing, and I'm like, all right, cool, well, have at it, because now we are on the same level. Actually, I'm higher above you because my idea is validated and yours isn't at that point. And just had to get that off my chest. But now with Dave, but Dave was great because he came in and he was just like, he had this full structure. So when you made up your whole target market, like, what did you think about, and like, who did that become really as personality?
Mm-hmm. Well, the numeric profile is pretty easy. I was looking at from startups to about $10 million worth of business. That's where I felt the soft spot was for my coaching practice. So I was very, very much focused on that. I really like the professional services side because, frankly, the margins are better. It's easier to pay for a coach, realistically. Okay. But the cool thing that I've learned is that it's not so much the kind of business or those hard numerics. It's more about the attitude of the entrepreneur. Where I have had the most success are the people that are most interested in self-development. There's a large portion of the entrepreneurial community that they think they know the answer, and they see maybe getting some mentorship as being a weakness. You know, if I'm open and honest about this, people will think I'm soft and I don't know what I'm doing. Right. And in fact, that's actually a success attribute for most entrepreneurs.
That's
so
funny.
It was really good.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. That's funny you say that, because I remember my very first coaching call was Noah Kagan from AppSumo did this experiment where he sold off, an hour of coaching, and I sent all my stuff ahead of time, and we got on the call, and about halfway through it, he was like, this is really refreshing. He's like, because I feel like you're actually listening to me and taking my ideas. He's like, so far everyone else I've talked to is already dead set with what they're doing, and they just want me to tell them, blow smoke and tell them how awesome they are and that they're going to be successful, and they're not listening to a single thing I'm saying. Yeah. I remember being like, why would someone pay you if they're not going to listen? Like, that was the whole point. And this was very early on in my career, so now I obviously, like, I get it. Like, they just want to be told by, someone successful that they're going to make it. But no, it's interesting. How do you overcome that? Like when you're talking to people, like is there a way? Do you try to find that out ahead of time so you're not stuck with someone who's not going to listen, or like kind of how do you go about that process of finding coachable people?
Yeah.
Well, I think for me it's really easy because I don't allow myself to be hired by people I don't want to work with. So
Let's work with Mike then.
He's easy. He's actually a good student. Very inward focused. He was motivated always to be better, which is what works. So yeah, people that aren't going to listen, or what I find is that there's a defense mechanism in the beginning. So the first hour is everybody's got their chest puffed up about telling you how great they are, when in fact once we get past that, then you find out the real person. So when I actually interview prospects, I just did it a couple days ago with a prospect. I spent the first hour trying to get and understand the value system of that person, and she was expecting me to ask all the questions about the nuts and bolts and what's the service they provide and what are the products and what kind of market. I really want to know about that person first, because if I understand you as an individual, then it's a heck of a lot easier to figure out how to be successful together.
Do you find that there's a certain, like the DISC assessment, which is a lot of people, some people don't really know about that. So DISC is basically a makeup of all humans. There's the D's, the I's, the S's, and C's. So just real quick rundown. The D, you think of it like an eagle, lone, 30,000 feet up, overlooks everything, quick to make a call, just gets it done. I is very chatty like a parrot, like I'm a high I, just talk. You get two eyes in a room, you only get nothing done for 2 hours. An S is like a dove, very soft-spoken, very aware of others, but also passive-aggressive, won't give you an answer up front, and doesn't like challenge, doesn't like to stir the pot. And then a C is like an owl, very analytical, spreadsheets. Everything has to be an Excel spreadsheet document, stuff like that.
Right.
So do you find out of that assessment there's a section that you're like, I just can't with these guys?
D's are really hard. The high dominant people, make decisions really fast, want to make all the decisions. So you have to have the right sort of mental approach to work with a D. Now, I happen to be part of that group. I'm a card-carrying D and an I, so I'm a combination of the dominant and the interpersonal, which is the classic salesperson profile, which is really weird because I never thought of myself as a salesperson.
Really?
Yeah. So the DI is really the what salespeople, what you want to find in business development and salespeople. But yeah, the D's are probably the hardest. I's, it's really the high interpersonal people. You got to keep them focused, like you. You got distracted a lot by bright, shiny objects and.
Oh yeah.
Focus.
It's like I felt Dave sometimes would be like, "Shut up, stay on the course."
Because I have a lot of tech businesses and I work with a lot of engineers, which are all mostly C's, high compliance, detail-oriented folk, and those C's are actually the best listeners out of all of them. So it's actually kind of fun to work with that type.
Yeah, like C's, I feel that'd be great because they want that instruction because they want to get us like a roadmap of, all right, we have this initiative, we need A to Z, what do we do in beginning to end, how's it going to look, and you just like, well, we do this, they'll just take a lot of notes and then they can dissect it and give it a lot of reasons why or why not to stay with this and this and this and this. Yeah. So yeah, I can see that.
The high compliance people, the engineer type, you hate to stereotype the group, but they also are they're scientists, they're engineers, they're many doctors, attorneys, folks that find vocations where they're very detail oriented. They're also smart enough to know that they're not great business people. So they've got great technical skills, so they tend to listen to a business person rather than where a D might be a natural kind of leader and have moved through an organization or started a business because they wanted to be the boss. They're a little harder to get through. But hey, we're all a genetic milkshake of our environment and who we are, so nobody's a classic one or the other.
Yeah.
We're all kind of a mutation.
Yeah, if you're a high I and you like to talk, you'll find very quickly that most likely you're mixed in with a D, because when someone calls you, like out of nowhere you don't know, you're like, get to it, get to the point, what's going on. Like you just want them, you want quick answers so fast. You're like, damn, like usually I'm more talkative and chatty, but when someone's like interrupting my space, I'm like, get to the effing point.
Yep. Yeah. So anybody that's interested in those kind of assessments, I charge a nominal fee for assessments, and it's a great way to understand who you are, and even more importantly, how you sell to people that are in a different style.
Yeah, that's huge. Like when you do a sales meeting with someone, you can, as soon as you know disc assessment, the moment you sit down with them, you know exactly what it is, who you're talking to, and then you can, in sales, you want to mirror the person you're talking to, because people like to buy from themselves, or people can relate to people like themselves. So if you find that a person is very chatty, like you have to become very chatty. If they're very relaxed, you should be very relaxed. So they want like quick answers, like you should, you know, give them quick questions. You know, it's like you want to really mold yourself into that situation. So
exactly right.
Yeah, that took a while to really learn. So we've got a lot of people in the group who, like I said, we've got a really broad range of people who are starting off their business, or they've got their business. And the one thing I see is like that pivot, or that what's that word? The tipping point is where they start hiring employees. Mm-hmm. What would you say would be like a really good advice to someone? So say you're a solo entrepreneur and you know you need to take on people. What would be like a good start to find the right people, and how to organize a team to help grow the company?
Okay. A great question, and it is a critical one. I work with a young company right now that it was just he and I when we started, and he's added in his first employee, second, third, fourth. So we've kind of evolved that. So we've lived it, and here's what I recommend, and frankly, what I force my clients to do, and it's called a positional contract. So a positional contract is like a glorified job description, but the reason that I like it is that it gets into more of the personal attributes of what you're really looking for. So what I found, in fact, let me reflect on a different way of saying it. There are many of my clients that have come to me over time and said, I can't find this person. I can't find an iOS developer. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, their iOS developers are hard to find, but let's go through the process of looking at this positional contract. Why does this job exist? What are the skills needed? What are the personal attributes? And what are you going to do for this person when it comes in? When one of my clients actually takes the time to write that out, it's kind of like that law of attraction thing. Once you describe it, then you are immediately moving towards it. And it sounds a little bit like psychobabble, but I've seen it time and time again where we describe that iOS developer or somebody like that person, and they usually find them in a month or two.
Wow.
Because they have a clearer picture of what they're looking for. So it's kind of like, especially true for a lot of guys, when you start getting fixated on the kind of car you want next, you start suddenly seeing that car everywhere around.
Yep.
It's just that your antenna's up, you're looking for it, and there you find it. So it's the same principle, but it really works for people. So the first hire is critical for a young business, because that culture starts evolving from you to that first person who replicates it to the third and the fourth and the fifth.
So when you have the team coming in, would you recommend, and I'm just asking this as a stupid question, would you recommend that you just give them a project and say, hey, go for it? Or would you say that, actually, let me break this up. Having somebody come in and trying to organize them is really hard, because, you know, they are, let's say it's an iOS developer, like, you know that they know what they're doing, but they also need to have that mission of beginning to end, how to follow, how to keep organized on your systems, basically. Yeah. So, like, would you recommend, as you're writing the position out, to create your systems so when they come in, you don't just say, here you go, make it happen? Or would you say, when you get that first employee, to build as you go, so you know exactly what it is? Like, you're not just building this whole roadmap that goes in the wrong direction and it completely took us hard right. Like, what would you say would be the best?
Yeah, there's no way. If you're a startup situation, if you're waiting to get every process perfect, you'll never get started.
Yeah.
So you gotta shift on the fly. You gotta 70-80% rule. Get it as good as you can, and then move. As it relates to hiring new people, I think you involve them in the development of the process. Here's what I know. Here's what you know. Let's put our heads together and figure out how to advance that.
How would you treat your team? Would you treat them with an iron fist, or would you treat them with respect and feel it build a culture?
My advice is to be like that professor you might have had in college that at the time you didn't really understand him, but over the years you kind of appreciated he or she more.
Okay.
So kind of here's my business. Here's how I want it to run. I need you to perform within those parameters, and I'm going to be watching closely because this is personal, but I still love you. I still am going to take care of you. You take care of me. I'm going to take care of you. Cool. But you got to be the boss.
Yeah.
What would you say? Because I like this whole keep on this thread for a minute about hiring, because like Mike said, we have a lot of people going through this in our group right now.
Yeah.
What would you say is like the biggest mistake when someone goes from like a solopreneur, they've spent the last year or two building their business, quit their job, built their business up, they're making enough to where they now need to start hiring out because they need the extra help and whatnot. What would be some like the biggest mistakes you see they make, and would be kind of like the right way to do it?
The first mistake that most young entrepreneurs make, or early stage entrepreneurs, is they hire people exactly like themselves.
That's funny.
That's what I would do. I know that's what I would do, and I would just want to hire a bunch of friends who were just like me.
That's why the assessment side is really important. So once you understand who you are and how you're going to react, then you need to find somebody that is consistent with that, but not necessarily the same. Because otherwise, it's like drinking at a bar, saying, here's to us and those just like us.
Yeah.
It's a bad decision, because we all need varied opinions and somebody that thinks and sees the world a little differently than you do.
Hmm.
And you won't do that because you're going to want to hire exactly somebody like you. I have an engineer client that we've been trying to hire a sales and marketing person for him for a year, 2 years, and we've gone through 3 of them because his final interviews are always people that are exactly the same as he. So a sales and marketing person should be outgoing, high interpersonal, and he keeps hiring the high compliance engineer type because that's who he is.
Oh gosh.
And we wonder why we're not making any progress.
Oh my gosh. So they're like just showing up and just spilling all the candy in the lobby. Like here's here's the pitch, and then their prospects are like, oh my god, get out of my office already. Yeah, man. Jared, I keep asking questions. Do you have? Yes, you keep writing a bunch of stuff down.
Yeah, I've got a few. I got a serious question, but first, before I jump to my more serious question, I feel like I have this opportunity here. It's like when you visit a friend for the first time, and his mom wants to, like break out like the photo albums and stories.
Oh, God.
You have any, since you've been mentoring Mike from, because now like we know Mike in the group as this like, ace like business entrepreneur guy who seems to have an answer to most things. Or if not, he has a funny joke of how he doesn't know anything about it. And so, do you have any, as coaching him from the beginning, do you have any funny stories? And I'm sure Mike wouldn't mind, right? Any funny stories or anything that the audience would be, find entertaining, or something that you kept banging your head with because he just couldn't grasp something he wanted to do it his own way, or just anything humorous?
I think the funniest thing, and Mike even talked about it before, was the fact that we could never really settle on who the ideal client was.
Yeah.
And he would shift from week to week, and then he'd lock into something, and it would keep him occupied for 42 minutes, and then he'd change direction.
Yeah, man. He tried so hard to really. This is where the issue came in, is that I go on my gut, and I told that to Dave time and time again. I was like, it doesn't feel right. I can't go with it. And I built Drive 80 on passion-based. It was very passion-based. But the problem is, it's easier to find the clients that you don't want because they're the normal. They're like the low-hanging fruit. They're the big corporations, and they're the pharmaceutical companies. Like, they have a lot of money, and I tried so hard to stay away from these companies, because I felt that it didn't align with what my mission was as a company, which was basically to educate people on how messed up things are. But I didn't know where to look, and I didn't think they existed. So I think the problem with a lot of entrepreneurs is they have this idea in their head of what they want, but then they're like, it only exists in my head. It can't exist out there because it sounds too broad and too like over-the-top thinking, and that's where the issue really came in. Because Dave would be like, all right, cool, let's go after franchises. Here's how you do it. And I was like, I don't really know. They sound like they suck. Like, I don't want to do that. But yeah, that was the biggest problem, man.
Mm-hmm. Focus.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, when Dave came in, man, I mean, literally, like Jared, you'd said that you'd want to sit there and ask for someone's advice. I must have talked 90% of the time in all of our meetings, and then he would like stop me at the end and be like, all right, well, how do we do that? And then we'd start organizing it, you know. And I really dove into. I had a lot of personal stuff going on in my life, and he was, and I from the, you know, I had that going on, and then the business, and it was a really stressful time. So I mean, there was one time where, you know, this is really personal. Dave came in the office. I was like losing it. I literally was losing it because I was like so stressed in life. And he walks in, and he was just like, "Hey," I was like, "I can't do this, man." And he just sat there for an hour, and we talked about just life. And so sometimes a business coach, it's just about, it's like therapy sometimes. Like sometimes you just really need to let the ball drop and just like get it all out there. And like that's where there's that benefit to that. And at the end, he's like, all right, well, cool, let's dust off. Now what the F, you know, what are you going to do next? Like what are you going to do by the next time I come in here? I'm like, all right, cool, like I got it on the table, let's do it. So he keeps you focused on that, which is great, which was, you know, very helpful. And then I sold everything.
Mike, it's a great point, because what the difference between life coaches, which there's a place for life coaches, and a business coach is the bias towards execution. So for me, it's always been about, I don't stay employed working for a client if I don't help them get results. So for me, it's because there's a lot of people that can talk, and you can read a million business books. You can probably see a bunch of them in my office, but unless you do something with it, then it's all for nothing. It's like Chinese food. You know, you're going to be hungry in a while. So you got to be focused on execution. That you get moving the ball down the field every week, and eating that elephant one bite at a time every day, and that's how you get great success. It's not the big moves. It's not the one idea, the home run. This is small ball. It's hitting singles every week.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
That's good. So the actually turned out to be pretty good. Less of a joke than I thought, but
yeah, thanks, Jared.
Disemboweling him in front of thousands of people.
Hey, I tried. I figured if anyone could handle it, Mike could. So, okay. So my other question is, you mentioned, and kind of going back to some of the Baby Zara stuff, you talk about how like once that company sold, and and you said you got a percentage of it, and you're financially independent, I think is the way you said it. Right. What was that like from going from, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like from the way you described it before, you were more of like the corporate kind of guy. I mean, you were high up, but you still like you were in that corporate world, and then all of a sudden you were financially independent. And then again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like for a while you had nothing to do, so you got to do whatever you wanted, and then after a while, like, okay, this is cool, but now I need some sort of purpose, and that's when you picked what you really wanted to do. So there's like those three kind of elements, right? You go from like the corporate kind of at the top of the corporate dream to I can literally do anything to like, okay, now I want to do what I really care about. What was that like, making that transition from like each of those? And then just, I guess that's the question really, is what was that like, making that transition from going from, like I said, the corporate world to like I can do anything, and then how come, and I think I have an idea of maybe what the answer is, but like why didn't you stay that way? Why didn't you just buy a yacht and sell the world or something, or like how come you decided to get back into something? And the business coaching is obviously ultimately what you did.
Yeah, I had to do something else because I needed to for my own fulfillment. I don't see myself ever retiring as long as I have continued health. There's no reason to. I have 30 years of experience, and I feel like I have the need to pass that on to other people to help them avoid the mistakes that I made. But the transition from corporate to being a sole entrepreneur is pretty dramatic. When you think about it, I ran an organization that had 10,000 people in it. So did I have to personally sell to an end customer? No. I had to sell ideas to a bunch of people so that they would follow what I was suggesting. So in a sense, that's sales, but it's not really closing the deal. So the big shift for me from sitting behind a desk to running my own business is now I had to hunt myself, and that was pretty shocking, and still is. I'm better at it now, but it's not the most comfortable situation. And there's a lot of people out there that hate selling. It's really not that bad once you. It's like public speaking. Once you practice it a few times, you get a lot better at it. But in the beginning, it really is painful.
That's going to be really inspiring for a lot of people starting in the entrepreneur group. Like I said, we have people watching. We have an entrepreneurs Roundtable Facebook group. If you want to join, it's free. A little plug there. But a lot of people in the group, it must be good for them to know that, you can hit a pivotal point in your career and have this, 10,000 people underneath you, and then once you go solo, it's just as hard as if you never had that.
Yeah.
It's like you face the same things that any entrepreneur is. It's wearing all the hats. It's learning all of that. It's creating that from scratch. So that's really cool to know that it levels the playing field with anybody, I feel.
Mm-hmm. I'd say that running your own business is as complex as running a $3 billion a year business. It's every bit as complex because there's not enough of me to go around. I've always got a long list of things that I'll never be able to accomplish, and then keep running triage on it to work on the things that are the most important for my business. But it's a lot more enjoyable than working for somebody else.
That's awesome.
As we know.
What was the last part? Oh, as you say, as you know.
As you know.
That's cool to hear, because a lot of people I know, maybe in the beginning, I want to be an entrepreneur because I want to be my own boss. But if I was given the opportunity to be at the top level, COO, CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company, there's that. Would I take it? Because then I still get to be the boss. But it's kind of cool to hear you say no, it's still different. It's it's still rewarding to go off and be, even if it's just you or you and a couple employees. Yep. There's still a difference, and it's still that. Basically, it's like we're on this end on the bridge, and we're we bought in the whole entrepreneur thing, and Mike and I have done the freelancer thing, and been successful. Now we're trying to go into more of the actual company structure where we'll actually build something with a brand and hire people and all that kind of stuff. And so it's as we're looking at it, it's oh, sure we want to do this, and it's we're pretty sure, but it's kind of cool to see oh, I've already crossed that bridge, and that it actually is as rewarding as you're talking about. Yeah. And then there's a whole nother plane that opens up, and it's okay, good, all right, let's keep going. It's coming down, when you're hiking up a hill, I live by Yosemite, so it's you get halfway up and the sun starts coming up and it's warm, you're oh man, so you ask the people is it worth it, and they're oh, it's beautiful, and you're okay, let's keep going.
Yeah. So so how do you, I think a lot of people want to know this too, because it's a big question, how do you structure your week? Do you, yeah, how do you, because I know part of it because I've seen it, but help people understand when do you plan, when do you execute, what tools do you use, all that stuff.
I think part of that I want to tack onto that question because they're very related. So that's the technical side of it, but then also because that's a struggle that I really had to face, and a lot of entrepreneurs when they go from a job to doing their own thing is when you're the one managing. So not just how do you manage it, but now you go from you had someone else that told you when to be at work, what was your biggest priority, what to work on. Oh, we got to get sales up. I got to start working hard. Now all of a sudden it's you, and if you don't do it well, you end up just watching House of Cards all day and don't make money. So I want to tack that on to Mike's question of that side of it too, of learning to manage your own self and time.
Yeah, it's especially hard if you're a home-based business because you have to be highly disciplined to do that. You got to get yourself out of the environment, or get dressed, shift mentally, go someplace else in your home or your wherever you're working. But yeah, the tools are really important because most of us avoid those kind of organizational recommendations. We want to do it our way. We want to craft it our own way, and that just doesn't work. So, and I've seen a lot of my clients really struggle with trying to get organized and keep disciplined. So I had my own way before I started my business practice, but I've evolved it now to be something different. So I'll do a plug for a book. It's called The 1 Minute To-Do List.
Yep.
It's written by Michael Linenberger, and I've read them all to try and find a way that I could shape this idea for entrepreneurs and something that they could actually put on the ground. Because there's some great stuff written, but it's really hard to execute. So the 1 Minute To-Do List is a really, really good way to do it. So your question was, how do I get organized? I've adopted this system. So it basically is, I've got a list of five pages of all of the things that I need to do that I never get around to doing. So it's a long list. And then on Sunday night, or Sunday afternoon each week, I look at that list and I say, here are the 20 things that I'm going to get done in the next week. And that gets rewritten every Sunday afternoon. And then the Sunday afternoon, I'm writing Monday's 5 items that I'm going to get done. And that next Tuesday's list comes off of that list of 20 that I wrote on Sunday afternoon. Wednesday's list comes off of that. And I try and stay as focused on that as I possibly can. Now, I've used this with a lot of clients, and it really has helped revolutionize how people get organized. Because you got to focus it down to the really critical, important things that you get done. And so I thought I had my stuff together, and what I found is that I'm a heck of a lot more productive and organized because I go through this myself now. So it's easy to teach because I believe it and I'm actually doing it.
So I just want to kind of go on off of that. So when you have the 5 things, do you do all? So it's like Tuesday. Do you like, oh, I gotta go all 5 things done Tuesday, or do you set it up where you're like, okay, I have this one thing that I really need to get done. Let me just focus on one thing. It's going to make it more valuable to get that done. You know, how do you work that?
Yeah, 5 max. It could be 1, depending on what you're doing.
Okay.
So the way I've evolved it is that I put it in my calendar on my Mac. So every one of those 5 things has a time slot. It's worked around where my client calls are and all that, so that I'm forced to look at that and to actually do that. So if something happens and a client needs me for 2 hours instead of an hour, drag that into the next day and say that now becomes the top priority. So it never falls off the list.
That's good. So so let's say you look at that list, right? You've got it, that big 5-page list. You put it on there. I guess my question is, how do you break down a piece of something that's too big, or do you leave it as one thing? So I'll give you a quick example. Like right now, my biggest to-do that I've been working on for Entrepreneur Roundtable is the Patreon page, trying to get that live as soon as possible. So there's 2 ways I could do it, and I've gone back and forth, and I'm trying to figure out the best way on this. I love your advice. So like I could go, okay, I have my 5 things. Number 1, create Patreon page. Number 2, next thing. Or I could look at that Patreon page and I could go, okay, inside of this project, there's like 6 actual main tasks. I need to do a video, I need to write the description, I need to get the images. When you do your 5 things, will you do that? So if you look at your list of like, okay, so this week I need a Patreon page, rather than putting that as number 1, would you take a minute and break that down and go, okay, here's the 5 elements that I need to get that Patreon page set up. That's going to be my Monday.
You are a very smart guy because you just had the answer. The answer is to break that down. Let me put that into perspective. So one thing, I do a lot of public speaking, and so what I did on my last one was write the slideshow for the speech and whatever, and so it sat there for a long period of time. So the only way that I could get myself to do that was outline what the talking points. Step 1, step 2, step 3, and then you start putting them in your calendar. Because most of those things are so big that you'll never do it unless you kick over that first domino. Okay. And for me, it's usually outlining or describe what I'm trying to get done, something to get the juices flowing, and then I go, oh yeah, this isn't so big. I can do this.
I think it kind of comes back to just growing your company. What we've talked in the group, or we've learned through the last couple of years, because Jaron and I met in the AppSumo group, was Noah Kagan run, started this whole thing for the wantrepreneur, the people who want to get into being an entrepreneur. And so me and Jared met that way. And the biggest thing that they would advocate on was having one goal for the year, and it was based on one thing. So his big thing was collecting emails. Some companies will be, 10 million in revenue, 100 million in revenue, or whatever it is, but that one metric is what they focus on, and anything leading up to it, if it doesn't do it. So in a sense, that metric can basically be utilized across the board, even down to your daily tasks. So what are the things that are going to get that done, and if anything else gets in the way, don't even focus on it, like just keep it out.
That's a purist sort of viewpoint. It sounds great, and I agree with 80% of it, but stuff happens.
Yeah.
And it's hard to stay focused on it. So there's another great book called the 4 Disciplines of Execution.
Okay.
4DX is it, and it was real popular a couple of years ago. But what the author there talks about is he talks about the whirlwind, all the stuff that we live through that distracts us, that we get caught up in, and how do you stick your arm out of that whirlwind and grab onto something solid and focus on the things that are really important. And what his premise was, no more than 3 goals for an organization at any one point in time. So what are those 3 things that you got to get done?
So for you, like, what are your 3 things in the year? Like, I know you break everything up into quarters and have the big picture for the year. So what is your plan for 2015? Are you there? Are you close to it? Like, how have you handled this year?
Yeah, I'm doing less marketing, so my focus really is on higher quality and better attainment for my clients. That's my #1 goal for this quarter for sure. I'm in the transition where I moved from the East, and I'm in Arizona now. So where I used to go face to face with my clients, now it's through digitally through a laptop. So I got to up my game. That's what I'm doing. So I have to learn how to be as impactful digitally as I was in person. So I can't squeeze anybody's neck. I can't pat them on the back. I can't
slap them in the face like, shut up!
So for me, it's about quality. That's what I'm focused on right now. Getting better results.
And then just keeping your clients happy, and then using a referral base to keep up where you're losing out, or you see like coming up like this person's probably going to start teetering off, so I really need to amp up the referrals over here and have them in the pipeline so I can book someone in and all that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a referral-based business for me. It's that's where I get most of my work, which is a good thing.
Do you use any? I mean, I know Second Melody is a web company or a marketing company in Morristown, New Jersey. They do fantastic stuff. So they did your website, and you were blogging a lot too, which I think you kind of. I haven't gotten any emails as of late.
During my relocation, I had no time to do that. So, yeah, I've got I'm going to restart that soon.
So, like online, what would you say your marketing presence is going to be?
What is it going to be? I have a really good website, and if you want to look at it, it's right up there. You'll see and sign up for my blog, because it is some interesting stuff. I post once a week, or will soon again post once a week.
Accountability.
Hopefully some interesting topics. So that, Facebook, LinkedIn, the normal stuff that most everybody does. Try and be as active as I can be on that.
Do you feel like a lot of the new marketing online is a little overwhelming, and is it stuff that you want to learn and try to get into, or are you kind of like, you know what, the stuff I do works, let me just live in this realm of what I'm doing and not worry about all that other stuff?
Yeah, I'm kind of I'm a little bit old school when it comes to that. I was an early adapter for LinkedIn, so I have a fairly strong LinkedIn presence. So for me, that's natural. The blogging is kind of natural. Twitter, not so much. Facebook may not be entirely my prospect.
So you're not periscoping every morning as you're getting dressed and delving out business tips, huh?
No. And maybe I should not. But no, I'm not.
That's funny. That's just a kind of a reoccurring joke. I like Periscope, but that's just something I'm noticing more and more, and I'm starting to kind of like use as a punchline of people who are just so awesome that like it's worth our time to listen to their business advice as they do their makeup or get dressed or brush their teeth. And it's like if you're gonna do a video, like I'm not saying you have to have a tripod and lights and everything, which would be nice, but like if you're gonna do a video, like let that be the only thing you're doing.
Right. Don't need distraction.
I want to delve in because I know we're got just about 10 minutes left, and we still want to give you an opportunity to kind of talk about ways people can partner with you. But I want to ask one more question just for the group, going back to the whole back to the group and people who are starting to grow. We talked about the whole hiring. So going to that same kind of phase in their business when they're going from, I have an idea, okay, now I'm making some money and I'm validated, to where they're doing well. Let's just say whatever for them that means. They're successful and they're running smoothly. Other than hiring, what are some of the things that like you see entrepreneurs get tripped up on with trying to make that transition from I'm at home on my laptop and my boxers, eating cereal and working on my business, and then now, okay, it's successful, I need to take it to that next level and build that brand. Like what are, other than the hiring, or some obstacles that you see that they struggle with?
Yeah. There's actually two. The first one is the whole understanding of your financials, because in the beginning there's an implicit understanding of what your business model is and how you would make money at it, but that's really different from what you started with to when you start to grow. And what I found is that there's lots of opportunities for entrepreneurs to figure out that model more completely before they waste a lot of money spending in areas that they don't need to spend. So that's a great place to get some mentoring from people. And in fact, it's most of my clients early on don't necessarily love this part. So it's some education and it's some hard work to learn how to do that. But one of the things that I found is that if you don't understand gross margins and how to make money and how to control your costs, all the effort, all the time, all the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into it may not pay off for you until you do. So that's really critical. The second piece is the difference from being just yourself or an employee or two to now you have to replicate who you are, so you don't have to be involved in every conversation, every decision. So how do you do that? So it's really what's your cultural statement for your company? How do your future employees understand how you think and feel? How do you communicate that effectively so you can leverage yourself? Because until they understand how you're going to act in a situation, how you would make a decision, they're going to always ask you. And most entrepreneurs that have 2 or 3 or 4 people, they're besieged by questions because their employees don't want to make a decision independent, nor does the owner really want to do it.
It's funny, I think about that consistently because me and Jared right now are growing the group, and we are working on some stuff in the back end to really expand on that. And I noticed that I ask him a lot of questions where I need to get answers. I'm like, you know what, I really need to step it up. I mean, we're not bosses of each other, like we're on a level, but I was like, I question myself, I'm like, I really need to just do it. Like, I need to figure it out and just do it, because it's like, I'm like, hey man, how do you do this? Hey man, how do you do this? And I'm like, I'm not doing what I'd want anyone to do who's working with me. Right. I want them to figure it out. So that really makes me think about that and just be like, be proactive on it and just do it. And then he could be like, cool man, let me just tweak this,
Yeah. We actually took our first step with that, because I know it's still early on, and it's actually is relatively easy just to be like, hey, how do you do this? Or hey, where's that link? And we're talking about it. I was like, you know what? I've heard a lot, especially Laura Roeder talk about. So it's like, you're right. And right now, it's not that big of a deal, and it is getting more of a distraction if we're working on something. And it's like, oh, where's that link? Or how do we do this? Or we each have an idea because of how we would have done it, but like, are we going to do it? For Entrepreneurs Roundtable. And so in this conversation, we came with ideas like, you know what? Let's create like a company wiki. So this is actually Mike's is in the process of learning how to set up a wiki. And it's like, so for all of our templates and for all of our processes, like right now of him going out and getting interviews, and then for me, like I know how to once I edit, because I learned this a couple months ago with another podcast. Like I know exactly how to take and do all the tagging and get the podcast episode online. In fact, I have a guy who I'm doing some coaching with. I walked him through it all yesterday. But then it dawned on me, like, okay, that took me like 45 minutes to walk him through that. And I may know how to do it, but if I'm gone, like I'm going to be gone this next week. So if Mike has to upload something because I can't, or we bring in an assistant, do I really want to spend all that time? Or what if we just had this documented? So that's what we're doing with this like company wiki. Is that like a good first step, or is that like is that not enough, or kind of like are we in a good direction, or what would be your advice?
No, yeah, absolutely, that's the right thing to do. You know, my advice to business owners is the way to get started on this is to pick the one process in your business that really always messes up.
Yeah.
And everybody knows that one, what it is. And it's typically, in most companies, it's how do I take an order and run that order through my business. So how do I do the order entry? How do I cut a PO? How do I cut an invoice? How do I execute it? So that is usually the most irritating. So what I recommend is that you actually get a bunch of Post-it notes and you write the different steps and you put it on a window or a wall until you find the different gaps between those steps, fill them in, reorder them, and then your process. You just type that in. There's your process of the most irritating.
Like Mike said, when he would ask people in the mastermind, how do I do this? They say, this is what you do. And he'd go, how do I do that? Well, there's a gap. And that you need to fill that gap in, and then once you're done with all that, and someone has to ask, well, how do I do that? Oh, you upload that to the server. How do I do that? Once all those questions are answered, now you have a good filled out process. Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's right. And somebody else can do that, and you don't have to. So you can go be strategic instead of getting caught up in the day-to-day stuff that eats up all of our time. That giant whirlwind.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like when I created Drive 80. We just do one thing over and over again. Like that was my focus. I was like, we're just gonna do 90-second animations. Then we could break them up into 3 30 seconds or 2 45 seconds. But right from the beginning, I sat down with one of my team members, Amy, who was helping write all the scripts, and we just sat down for an hour or two and wrote beginning to end everything that happens. And we took that and put it into Basecamp. So every time a project started, we knew exactly what happened. And so when I brought a project manager on, I just kind of showed her, and I wrote up a process and document or processes in Google Docs and said, like, step by step, this is what you do, and just follow Basecamp. So she knew after going through the first time, she knew exactly what to do, so she just ran it. And it was just like, it was just pushing the boulder, and then it just rolled, you know. And then when we just did the same thing over and over again, it just became, oh yeah, we know exactly what it is we're doing. So when someone new came in, I broke it down even more and had the animator process, the designer process, the voiceover process. So when they'd come in, I'd send them the link and say, follow this. It'll answer all your questions. And it's really detailed, but it's really powerful because it's just like, you know, when you have employees, they ask you questions constantly. Like you'll start at the office at whatever time, and by the time the end of the day comes around, you've got nothing done because you're answering questions all day. You know, and that's a big thing too with getting interns. When you get in, everyone's like, "Oh, I got an intern." I'm like, you better have their whole day structured because they're gonna go, "Okay, I'm done," and you're like, "That was 5 minutes. That should have taken you 5 hours." I've had it happen to me. I had one. She was great.
I've that too.
Oh my God, you know, and it's just like, oh my God. But yeah, but I had a question come up, and I think this would be really helpful for Dave. Do you have like a really awesome success story currently, or because you mentioned before you have a client who's hiring and their business is blowing up, and I knew it was a couple of your clients, like they just skyrocketed. Do you have like a really cool success story for where you came in and from that point till now, the company just blew up in revenue or just had this crazy success?
Yeah, got a bunch of them. There's one back in New Jersey that I met the CEO. It's a privately held company, 3 partners. I met the CEO at a workshop that I was doing on how to prepare your business to be sold. So he came to the workshop because his company was on the rocks, almost done. 6 months worth of cash, that was it. And a 30-year-old company at the time. So we started working together and working on the fundamentals. That business in the last 2 years has doubled at least doubled in its size and sales.
Wow.
We're hiring people consistently, and the 3 partners have never made so much money in the past. So they're actually working with their accountant and an attorney on how to restructure the business so that they don't pay so much tax. So
that's a good problem.
That's a good problem. I have another company that I work with that it's been 4 years, and we have together doubled the business in the last 3 years. Doubled it each year.
Wow.
So it went from 10 employees to I think he has 80 or 90 now. So it's a remarkable success story. That business grosses $7.8 million in sales this past year, and he personally will take out about $1.6 million.
Wow.
So if someone's watching this and they're like, yeah, this is what I need. I've got all these questions. This guy's got the answers. How can they reach out to you? How can they have that conversation about possibly hiring you as their business coach and getting those kind of results for them and their business?
Okay. So right over my shoulder, you can hopefully you can see it. So it's DaveSchoenbeck.com is my website. Go on there, sign up for the blog. I have an ebook in there that you can download for free. It's called 18 Critical Responsibilities of a Business Owner. That'll kind of open your eyes to what you should be doing if you haven't figured that out. You can call me. You can email me at dave@daveschoenbeck. What I like to do is I offer a complimentary 1-hour coaching session for anybody that is interested. So I'll talk you through, find out what you're trying to get done, coach you up for that, and we'll develop next steps. Usually is a kind of a information survey that will help me design a coaching program for you. So it's really easy. No pain, no strain. There's no strings attached. Talk to Coach Dave, and we'll see what we can do. See if it's going to be a fit. For me, the chemistry has to be right for both of us, because this is a trust relationship. You got to trust me that I know what I'm doing, and I have to trust you as a prospect that you're going to do what you said you're going to do, or else it just doesn't work. The failures that I've had as a coach is where I made some mistakes along the way, but it's usually that the client is not disciplined enough to do what needs to be done. They're not motivated enough, maybe.
Have you fired anyone?
Three business owners over the last 7 years. That just there's no. I'm not going to take people's money if they're not going to do anything. It's wrong, and I don't enjoy it.
Awesome.
Because I'm in the business of helping people, and that's why I do this. I could go lay by my pool or play golf and get some entertainment out of that, but I do this because I like it, and I get great results for people, and they tell me that.
Who gave you that download idea for for your website?
The ebook?
Yeah.
I think it was you.
Yeah, I just wanted everyone to know that.
Nice fishing.
Right.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Jared.
Who was it that worked with you to get a download for Drive 80?
It was you. If anyone signs up on drive80.com and gets the 7 benefits of animation, Jared was the one who wrote it. I hired him. That's how we first started working together. I hired him. He was a ghostwriter for me. So I actually got a lot of LinkedIn posts and blog posts where Jared was me writing. And actually I found that, and he was like very informative, but he did a lot of writing for that, which is awesome. So you could download that at drive80.com and read it.
So who is the guy that made you create your first video for yourself?
Oh, man. Okay, so if you go to drive80.com, there's an animation that I did, and I had this idea. I was like, because I used to be in a band, I was like, I'm going to do a song about my company and have this really annoying hook at the end where I say Drive 80 over and over again. So I tell Dave this. He's just like, when are you doing this? I'm like, well, it's going to take a lot of time. So he literally emailed my friends, and I think my wife at the time and everyone around me, and they were like, so Dave told me to tell you to get on your shit and start doing this. So he literally just kept, and I was like, oh my God, okay. But it was one of the greatest things I've ever probably done, and it was huge for explaining what my company did. And it was like we actually got a gig where we did another video, which you can see on the website, where we did another song for a client. And it was cool. And I told them, I was like, look, it's just me on a guitar, and I'm going to be singing a melody, and we're going to make it. And they're like, oh, this is amazing. We totally got to do this. So I never really pressed on the idea to keep doing that, because I think it really would have niched it down. But like writing that many songs would have just been the death of me. I would have hated it. I would have hated it so much. But Dave was just like, where are you at? Where are you at? I was like, oh my God, all right, I'll do it.
I love the emailing your friends part. That's awesome.
It was amazing. My friend Mike would be like that. Yeah, dude, he's dirty, man. It's great. I came to the office. Mike Graham, who owns Second Melody, he was like, yeah. So Dave told me to tell you to get that animation done. I was like, man, he's coming from every angle. Yeah, it was great.
I don't know how you can be an animator and not have an animation for yourself.
It's just so time consuming. It's so time consuming.
It's like marketers. I work with marketing companies, and they're the ones that usually have the worst marketing plans.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's just like the old adage. It's like the carpenter who his own house is falling apart. It's you come home from working all day, and the last thing you want to do is to go work on your own stuff. But that's that discipline of you just have to do it. I
actually learned. When I was marketing my company, I would hire marketers to give me a plan. So I wasn't what's the word? Too cool for school to have someone hire experts to do it. So even I think if you are even business coaches have business coaches. I mean, I don't know, Dave. I don't know if you. So Dave does too. Like you see the value of it, what it is that you create. But like let's say if I was someone who builds homes all day long, I'd probably hire someone else to fix up my house for me, or I don't know, like you find the experts to do what you do, because you could do it yourself, it's going to take a year, or you can get someone else to do it, and it'll take less time. So that's why I built like a team to do all the animations. Like I can animate, I can design, but there's people out there who are way better than I am, and I could take on more projects when they did it. So I was like, I'm just going to hire people to do the things I can't do, and it was so much better. It was ridiculous, man. So yeah.
Cool. Well, I want to just thank you for coming on. I felt like this video was almost felt like a little bit of business school or business coaching in itself. And I feel like I love the whole, like, we got some of the Babies R Us story, but then just so much of the practical and then just knowing our group, being able to ask questions not just for ourselves but also for the group. I felt like this is a really cool interview. So thank you for agreeing and for coming on.
No, it was great. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I actually just added Dave to the roundtable, so he's going to be watching, judging. Look at the baby.
So people are going to start, like, when they're asking their questions, they're going to start tagging Dave and be like, "We love your opinion, your advice."
Dave's going to creep in the shadows. He's like, "Oh, I don't like that."
Stealth coach.
He is stealth coach Dave. Oh man! All right. Well, how do we end this?
we go like this.
Normally, I try to end it, and you make a bunch of sound effects and jokes as I'm trying to.
I'm getting more professional, Jared.
Okay. All right. Well, it threw me off, man. I didn't know. Like, you weren't, doing it. So, okay, really quick before we end, if you haven't already, I know we've been now I know we're ending. All right. Go to Facebook.
That was smooth.
Entrepreneurs Roundtable. Search it. You just go up to the bar, start searching Entrepreneurs Roundtable, ask to join it, and we'll let you right in. And it's a great group. It's free. You don't have to do anything, pay anything, jump through any hoops. Unless you ask Sarah Moore, then sometimes she tries to make people do things to get in the group and do rituals or whatever. But just don't worry. I'll let you in. Ignore whatever Sarah says. It'll be fine. You get in. It's going to be awesome, and it's a great community. And then, who knows, maybe you'll end up being an interview on the show soon. So, Once again, I just want to say thanks to Dave and Mike. Any parting words?
We'll do something important today.
Oh, man. I'm working on the logo for the Entrepreneurs Roundtable. So
how's that coming?
It's good. I came up with a really cool idea yesterday, and I showed it to Jared, and he liked it. I gave him like 3 concepts, and his wife really liked him. His wife really liked the one that I liked, which was great. So I'm gonna go kind of advance on it, and but yeah, so that should be up. So I get that, and then I've got the Drive 80. I sent like this whole autoresponder email thing, which has been doing great. So Gideon's helped me out with that, and I'm gonna go hang in a coffee shop in Portland, Oregon. which is awesome. And I think actually, real quick, I think I actually mentioned to you that I wanted to travel and do my company remote before I did it the year prior to doing it. Yeah, I talked about it a lot, and you were like, that sounds pretty cool. So now it's kind of interesting that we're talking, while I'm in Portland. This is just kind of surreal that I'm actually doing it. So, but yeah, so as a testimony though, Dave was great. He was a great coach, and he helped me clear my head, and really took me from where I was and just showed me real business structure, which a lot of people don't know when they're starting as entrepreneurs. So he's great for that, and really, really crappy moment in time in my life, he was right there, and every other weekend I'd see him, and he'd be like, what's going on in life, what's going on in business, and he just kept me level, so he's a great coach, and I'd recommend to pretty much anybody.
Yeah, and I will say I actually got a lot of benefit of that too, because this is around the time when I was running Nate Ideas, and I was doing the actual, done-for-you marketing, copywriting, services and whatnot. I had, met Mike first as a client, and I was doing stuff for him, but then we quickly became friends after just a month or two, and then we'd just start chatting. Like, we'd have these, calls, and he'd start talking. He's like, oh, my business coach, Dave, told me this, 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 and this, and so this is all this stuff, and he'd walk through it, and when we got off the phone, I was like, okay, I need to go do that. I don't have that set up. So then I'd go and I'd set something up, and spend a day or two like, okay, got to get this in place. So that actually helped me a lot too, just being friends with Mike, as Mike would be like, this is what Dave just told me in this week's thing. So it's almost like I got the benefit of that too. So from that grandfathered in relationship or whatever, I could say, yeah, there's some good stuff that helped not only Mike with Drive 80, but helped me as well. So when he suggested having him on here, I was like, oh, heck yeah. I've only talked to him on the phone once, but I've benefited from his coaching. Let's get him on here for the rest of the people.
Good. I'll send you an invoice.
All right.
It's expensive.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for sticking around. We will see you guys next week.
All right. Thanks, Oz.